All right, we are going live.
Cat knows how to open all my doors in my house.
Live stream.
We know how that goes.
Of the day where the dog and cat fight for 30 minutes.
Coming in yet? I'm surprised. Surprised we don't.
Nope, just me watching right now. I have a little camera in my kid's room so I can watch him while I podcast.
There we go. Kent, audio, Mark,
what's up,
Liam.
Kent? Audio, what's up, Mark? What's up, Liam? What's up, The Rock? Happy New Year! Happy New Beard.
Happy New Year.
Oh, I'm frozen. Well. No, I think your music or your voice went away, Dave.
My voice went away?
There, you're fine.
Hey, it's back.
Okay. I didn't change anything that time. That worries me. Yeah. Oh, well.
Well, can help build a computer next week.
Oh, yeah?
My brother-in-law. I basically gave him the exact same build of mine. And I said, here, buy this. And he's like, all right, cool.
Oh, you know it works that way, right?
Yeah, right?
You can see Mark's comment.
Epstein didn't kill himself. Okay.
Oh, man. All right. All right. Everybody ready to start rolling?
I am rolling.
Okay. I am rolling that beautiful bean footage. Check. 1, 2. Hey. All right. Looks good. No microphone problems. And we're good. All right. Let's do a little sync clap. It'll be 1, 2, 3 clap. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Awesome.
We're good to go here. Everything's running. Everything's good. All right.
Fantastic.
I should probably mute my phone. It's already muted.
Yep.
All right.
Done.
All right. Let's do this. What's up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt. Joining us today is one of my favorite people in the entire world, Mr. Russ Gautier.
Hey, happy to be here.
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us, info@mograph.com, and let us know what you think about the show. Questions, comments, concerns, queries, grievances, show topic ideas, send them over. Let us know what you want to hear. I think that I'm going to do a listener survey pretty soon, because I think after 216 episodes, we should do a survey.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just want to see.
Seems to be working.
I want to see what people are enjoying, you know? So
be sure and put people's people on there. You know, do you enjoy people's people?
Well,
I bet you'll get a resounding
I don't
no.
I don't feel like I really have to, because everybody will say yes.
Right, okay.
So, yes, this is our first episode that we are not broadcasting on all the old things. So, if you're not hearing this, that's because you're not subscribed. So, If you're wondering why you're not hearing us right now,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
We're gonna get emails. Where's the new episode?
Mm.
Well, it's your fault.
Sorry, bruh. So I did want to just do a week wrap up, just real quick. Not much to talk about. I was out of town. I just got back literally a couple hours ago from Detroit. Tried to hook up with Billy while I was there, but he was doing some stuff. He was out of the city at the moment, and yeah, it just didn't work out. But I'm sure I'll be seeing him pretty soon. And so yeah, I just got back just in time to get the notes done and sit down and do the show. So the other thing is that finally,
very well thought out, prepared show, I'm sure.
yes. Well, organizing the notes, not necessarily writing all the notes.
Okay. Gotcha.
But the only other thing. Oh, you had something go viral. You had something hit the front page of Reddit yesterday.
Yeah. I don't know. It was fun. So I've been going through this course that we're about to put out, Mark Fancher's Houdini, Stop Being Afraid of Houdini course. And so I was on chapter 9, the vellum one, where we were creating some vellum grains and stuff like that. It was very cool. And so I, did a little animation, and he does this cool thing where he spreads it out and it says, wow, it's like a texture stuck to the thing. And I did one. It was a dick butt. It's my first gold. I got Reddit gold. I was very
Oh, did you really?
Show it. Okay. Yeah, I got Reddit gold.
Oh, that's funny.
So,
man, it had a lot of upvotes. It had like 7,000 upvotes on Reddit. 10, oh, was it really?
10, yeah, I got it to 10,000. I was very happy. About that.
That's really funny awesome. Because you and Beeple both hit the front page of Reddit yesterday.
Yeah, I know. That was funny.
Beeple's.
Oh, thanks, Allie. They gave me silver.
Oh,
Alex
that's funny.
Gave me silver in the chat.
Oh, really?
That's funny. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, thanks. I take no credit for it. I just followed a bunch of instructions. Mark is really the genius behind it.
But now you know how to make
the dick butt on it.
Yeah, that's true.
That was all. I had to Photoshop that dick butt. Yeah.
I think it was funny because everybody is like, "Man, I forgot about that meme." I'm like, "You can't let that meme go. It's a classic meme."
No. See, now it's the Epstein didn't kill himself meme.
That's true. That's true.
That's so.
Yeah, but that's harder
Maybe
to put.
I got more if it had been Epstein.
Yeah, no. How do you do that on Floam? Really?
I mean, you just make it a thick font.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Originally, it said word on it because it spread the word. But
I didn't put that to it.
Yeah, I didn't either. And then I was watching the back on the intro, and I was like, "Oh, that's it. Spread the word."
Yeah.
But
got it.
One more day of editing left on that.
Great.
I'm super excited. I've been working on this edit for so long, and I'm just gonna take a vacation afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, vacation. Then we have to.
Too bad I can't.
Client work.
Too much to do. So,
I get a vacation in 3 weeks because I'm having a baby.
Quotes. Is that a vacation?
Vacation.
Vacation.
Yeah. Ariev is gonna guest host while you're having a baby. So.
Yay. Yeah. Maybe we'll have the baby early enough to where I can Skype in and say hi
from the hospital.
From the hospital.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be
it's
cool.
Like right as she's in labor, and I'm like live streaming. What up, y'all?
She's in the background. You did this to me. I hate you.
Get off the phone. Why are you always working?
Oh man. But yeah, we're just gonna dive right into it today because I feel like we've got questions. Like the listeners are gonna have some questions, and
fantastic
for those who have never met you before,
it's a shame
IRL or on the interwebs. Tell everybody what you do and what you're most known for artistically.
Oh man. Yeah, that's what I do is a pretty broad question, I guess, but I'll start there. So I would say I'm a motion graphics designer, animator, art director. I've been creative director. I've kind of played a lot of roles. I also do a lot of education. So I taught at SVA for a couple of years, taught Houdini to graduate and undergraduate students, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, those are the kind of broad strokes. What I'd spent the last 5 years doing, I was hired up as art director at Perception and later promoted to associate creative director. And I was there for 5 years. Perception, their big thing is, at least publicly, is Marvel movies. They actually do a lot of work in the tech sector as well. Tons of automotive work.
Yeah.
Work for like almost every major tech company you can think of, they'd done work for, which was fascinating. But of course, being the tech world, you can't really show or tell or talk about any of that stuff pretty much ever. So the Marvel, the feature film work, I will say, because it wasn't just Marvel, we did work for Warner Brothers and a few others as well, Legendary as well, I think. But the Marvel movies are the things that really, like, publicly Perception is known for. And for the last 5 years, I'd spent a lot of time working for Marvel on their movies.
Sure.
Now, those tech companies, we can't mention specifically who or what they are. Are you able to say what type of work that was?
So,
because I know, but I don't want to say anything without,
I know.
Oh, totally.
I just want to see if you know.
Yeah.
So Perception really kind of filled this interesting niche of being like almost like future tech consultants in a way. So we did a lot of conceptual work, a lot of kind of forward thinking visualization of technology in the future. Sometimes it was near future, sometimes it was very far future. But it was a really fascinating area to work in. They called it sci-fi thinking, which was this notion of applying sort of the principles of science fiction to modern technology and sort of near future technology, which was a really fascinating space. It allowed for a lot of really interesting conversations and conceptual developments and all kinds of stuff. It was fascinating projects for sure.
It's one of those things where it's like life imitating art,
Yeah. Because like we do all the work for the Marvel movies, tons of technology for the Marvel movies, lots of like HUDs and FUI and sci-fi technologies for Marvel. And of course, like all of the people that work at these big tech companies, they go see Marvel movies just like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And, they start looking down the credits to see like who were the people that were making these crazy things. And they eventually land on Perception and come and reach out. I'm sure there's a significant amount of back and forth on that as well. I'm sure the guys do a lot of outreach in the tech community as well to talk to them about that kind of stuff. But yeah, really, really interesting niche.
So you taught, where did you go to school to begin with?
So I went to Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. I got a very traditional graphic design degree. The school there, at least at the time, this was really long time ago now. The school there was very heavy on the theory. A lot of their professors were, very steeped in kind of like Bauhaus style graphic design. Lots and lots of time spent like cutting out little things with an X-Acto knife on a rubber thing and like pasting and that kind of stuff. Lots of conceptual graphic design as well. Like it wasn't so rigid in that we were, like laying out restaurant menus and that kind of thing. It was very heavy on the theory, lots of like poster design and, lots and lots of typography, tons of work with typography. So it was a really good primer because for me, like the theory was what I really needed. Like I needed that kind of theory, that practice, the critiques, like that was the number one thing that, you know, like everything that you did was leading up to the critique for the class. Like that was it. The critique was the thing that you got graded on. That was the thing that really mattered.
Like that?
Every class. So we had very few, at least at the time, we had very few technical classes. Almost everything was super heavy into the theory, at least the classes that I took, because that's really where my interests lied. But you know, very heavy on theory, which was great for me because I pick up the technical stuff really easily. Like I taught myself Photoshop and Illustrator and all that stuff in order to do what I wanted to do, to kind of execute whatever idea I had in my head. That was the easy part for me, picking up the technical side. The hard part was really nailing down the concept and that theory and really kind of getting the execution to follow what I had in my head. So that was a lot of what school was. And I actually ended up, I taught there for a couple years as well, like right after I graduated. So I graduated in the fall, and then 2 weeks later in the spring, I was teaching an interactive design class. And I had students of mine who were classmates like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it was nuts.
What is interactive design exactly, though?
Oh, yeah. So
is it like Macromedia Director?
Yeah, so it was Flash at the time.
Close enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. Flash was my jam for years. I loved Flash. I still miss Flash in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It just allowed for so much kind of flexibility and play in that kind of interactive space, where now I feel like it's so challenging, not just to create something interactive, but to publish something interactive takes like a team of people, where like before with Flash, I could sit down for a couple hours, bang through some action script and have like a thing that I can share for free with literally anybody who has a Flash plugin. And then, of course, you know, the iPhone pretty much killed Flash, and then all the security problems that it had pretty much killed Flash. These days, I mean, of course, Flash is still used, but it's used for very different purposes now.
So, when you, let's see, I'm thinking of the timeline here. When you, so you did that, and at what point did you, what city was that again? So
I was in Richmond, Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up in Arlington, right outside of DC. My dad was in the government at the Smithsonian. So we,
cool.
So I spent a lot of time at the Natural History Museum, which is where he worked. So basically grew up around dinosaur bones and all kinds of stuff, which is cool. At the time, I didn't think it was that cool. I mean, I was into it, but like, I was like, doesn't everybody grow up with this? No, they don't.
So how did you end up in New York then, I guess, is the...
Oh, man. Yes. So when I was 14, I think our high school class took a trip to see the Statue of Liberty, and I'd never been to New York. And, you know, it's something I'd seen in movies and pictures and everything, of course, but like I'd never been there, and totally fell in love with it. I was like, oh, I got to live here. At some point, I've got to be here. This place is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in Richmond. I started in school in Richmond, and then I lived there for like 12 years. I worked at the Martin Agency for a long time, and a couple other places, did some freelance around there, which was great. But that New York City itch really like it needed to be scratched, man. I hit a point, like Richmond is an awesome city. It's really, really cool. It's dirt cheap to live in. So like it tends to be a bit of a black hole. So people don't tend to escape the black hole all that often. So I knew that if I had stayed for too much longer, I wasn't going to leave. So I decided to just, you know, rip the Band-Aid off and move to New York City. And it was life-changing. It was amazing. Incredible experience.
And how old were you then?
I was 33 when I moved to New York. So like it's sort of, I will say the general arc of my life is that I tended to do things a little later than everybody else. But that usually worked to my benefit, at least the way that I like to approach things. Like I didn't start college till I was 22. I graduated at 27. And then moved to
college for 7 years.
Yeah, it was fine. It's fine. I learned a ton. Moved to New York City when I was 33, and it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. It was super cool.
So,
and now we're in LA.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Now
so
you're in LA.
Yeah,
yeah.
How did that whole freelance thing happen? Like, how did that end up happening?
Which one?
Well, going freelance and moving to LA. Like, did you just decide one day, or is it something you had been thinking about for a while?
So my wife and I have been talking about that for years, long time. California had been something that we both wanted to explore for almost as many years as we'd been together, basically. And we just kind of hit a point where like a handful of things fell into place. We'd had a huge year in 2019. We actually got married last year. So
congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that was, of course, a huge undertaking. We took a trip to Italy. We, did all kinds of things. So last year was a huge year for us. And I think we just sort of hit the point where like, well, why not just make it even bigger and just like move to LA? Like, let's just do that. She was at a point where she was kind of over her job, and we were both, I think, just at the end of the day feeling kind of exhausted by New York City. Like I loved my time there. I loved it. It was, it still is one of my favorite places ever. But it wears on you after a while, you know, like the volume is turned up to 11 as soon as you step out of your apartment, basically 24 hours a day. And we lived in Brooklyn, which was great. It was very, compared to Manhattan, it was very quiet. But it's not a quiet place at all. Like it's intense. Every single time you step out of your apartment is an intense experience. And over the years, it just, it kind of wears you down a little bit. So we were looking for a lifestyle change. We both really love doing things outdoors. So, California seemed like a good place for us to move on to.
And so now you're doing freelance. Do you have, did you have like kind of a game plan for that going in, or?
Sort of. So I'd freelanced for a couple of years before joining Perception in New York City, and I absolutely loved it. I was actually pretty resistant to coming on full time initially, because I really loved being freelance. Like being freelance was so much fun. I get to bounce around all over the place, work with different people. It was incredible. So I knew a bit more of like what to expect. Like I'd done this before. Like it wasn't a super new thing to me. So I knew that I would ultimately end up being okay, even if initially it was a little slow. Because that's, it's a trajectory I've followed before. So it is what it is. But I initially, my game plan was to move out here, spend, 2 or 3 weeks getting the website together, starting to hit up studios, seeing if I can drum up business. But as it turned out, I was hit up by imaginary forces pretty much immediately upon saying that I was going freelance. They brought me on for a project that I'm on now. And they actually briefed me on the road when we were when we were driving out here. Yeah, it was nuts. So we took an RV trip across the country when we moved. So it was something that we'd both really wanted to do. And I'd done the cross country drive a few times, but my wife never has. And so, it was a great opportunity for her to kind of, dictate where we go and what we see. So we went south because we really wanted to go north, but driving an RV through the Rockies in the fall when it's like kind of snowy and nasty, and not so much. So we decided to go south. we went down through like West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee and
Yeah.
Oklahoma City. We sort of cut the corner of Texas, went down through like Lubbock, down to Arizona. We bummed around in Arizona for a while, New Mexico, and then up to LA. It was amazing.
That's a long way.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do a cross-country RV trip.
Yeah, dude, it was so cool. It was so cool. I would absolutely recommend it.
What would you do? Just like stay the night at the RV parks?
Yeah,
Find
absolutely.
RV? Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
KOAs
Yeah.
all the way, man.
Yeah.
And because it was the off season, we were traveling in sort of late October, early November, which is the off season. So we didn't have to call ahead for reservations for the most part. We didn't really have any issues. I feel like Roswell was the only place that we had to stay at like a local RV park as opposed to a KOA. But it was so much fun, man. It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
That's cool. That's cool.
So what types of things?
Hashtag bucket list.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of NDAs and things we have to work around here, but what types of things are you doing now? Like maybe like what kind of software are you using, that kind of thing?
Sure. So I've been a Cinema 4D diehard for a really long time. It's still my, by far my number one tool of choice when it comes to design, animation, anything. Picked up Houdini a few years ago, and obviously I taught that for a couple of years at SVA, so I'm at least familiar enough with it to impart some knowledge upon the upcoming visual effects artists of the world. But Cinema 4D and Houdini, I think I've started to really use those really in conjunction with each other. Like it's so easy to send things to Houdini and do some things and then send them back to Cinema for rendering or additional animation or whatever. Like they work so seamlessly together now using Alembics or whatever.
And especially Redshift too.
Oh yeah.
Redshift with the Redshift proxies and stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Redshift is definitely my number one renderer of choice for sure. Yeah. Love Redshift. So those are, that and After Effects, of course. Gotta comp that stuff somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That's sort of my main toolkit these days, for sure.
Yeah, that's something that I'm finding just in editing this. I'm seeing what Mark's doing, and it's just so nice to be able to have that workflow. And I feel like, Houdini is so powerful and it has all this cool stuff, but it is very much under the hood. It's Cinema 4D with the hood up in a way. And you're doing all the things and you're crossing all the wires and stuff. But when you're done, it's nice to go back into Cinema 4D. It's nice and comfortable. It's nice and intuitive. It's nice and easy to use.
It's fast.
It's funny because I've been doing all this training and I've been in Houdini for, 2 weeks straight now doing all of it. And I've gotten so used to not using the 1, 2, 3 keys to navigate around.
Oh, yeah.
That I jump back into Cinema and I find myself just using the Alt key the entire time, which a lot of people already do, but that was not initial. And then I was trying to create some Redshift like materials and stuff, and I kept in C4D and I kept hitting the tab to bring up the thing to search my material. I was like, why isn't this working? This needs to work this way.
Absolutely.
It's really great because a lot of people are like, oh, you're moving to Houdini? It's like, no. It's not really a move to Houdini. It's like learning Houdini, and using that. It's such a great combo. But
I kind of think of it as like a really good extension of Cinema 4D's capabilities. Like where Cinema 4D's capabilities start to, the curve starts to slope down a little bit. That's really where Houdini picks up, and they work so well as like a combo package, at least for the kind of stuff that I've been doing. It's been invaluable. But like I said, I'm still, 100% diehard Cinema 4D user. Like I love it. It's great. It's like if you're doing style frames or something like that, if you're doing you know, animation, anything. It's amazing.
So this whole year, already everybody's had kind of like this buzz about Houdini. Like 2020 is the year of Houdini, you know.
I think it is.
And
2019 was the year that everyone said they were going to learn.
Right.
2020 is the year that they're actually going to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It takes a lot of repetition, I think. You know, you've got to see, especially when it comes to typing in expressions and things like that and remembering what they are. Yeah. You know, it takes a lot of repetition on that.
That's actually one of my favorite things about Houdini is being able to go into a specific parameter, like, you know, you want to change the scale or something like that. Or if you're activating a certain node, you know, if you're turning it on or off, like being able to actually write a simple some simple script like #F greater than 46, you know, that means at 46, you know, anything greater than 46 turn on. It's like, instead of actually having to create keyframes that you're going through and then creating all these, you know, unneeded keyframes, just typing in some code and being like, this is when I want it to start.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's a really interesting way of working. It totally forces you to think in a completely different way. It's one of the reasons that I really enjoy kind of solving problems with it. Is it's such a wide open sandbox that you can kind of do anything with, but you can't use it like you would use Cinema 4D or Photoshop or something like that. Like you have to use it in a different way. It's so much fun. I love it.
Like stripping attributes and stuff, you know, things like that. And even like baking Alembics, getting info out of there that doesn't need to be in there so you can keep the file sizes low. What's the thing? Stripping attributes, you do like asterisk or something to delete all the attributes except for caret,
and then the caret.
Yeah. I love that stuff. It's super nerdy. But speaking of which, because this is like Oprah, you get a Houdini course and you get a Houdini course.
I did.
So now you've got a Houdini course. Tell us what you cover.
So the Grayscale Gorilla Plus Houdini course is really geared towards Cinema 4D artists specifically. There's a ton of information out there in Houdini if you want to, you know, set something on fire, if you want to do water sims, or I mean, like, it's so heavily geared towards visual effects artists because that's really the space that Houdini has occupied for a long time.
For sure.
And it's only been in the past few years that we've started to see it be used more and more in the realm of visual effects, and also in the realm of motion graphics. And so there was kind of this gap where, you know, I'd seen a lot of people talking about how Houdini is really daunting, and it can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And I think if you can lay a solid foundation of how to think like Houdini wants you to think, it can actually be, it can open a lot of doors in terms of really learning the software, because you can't approach it like anything else. Like, you have to think about it from a different perspective. You kind of have to unlearn what you've learned about other 3D programs. Like, if you go in and you start hitting all the shelf tools, like, you know, I mean, all those shelf tools at the top look super juicy. Like, I want to go in and press this. I want to make this object dynamic. But like, it's presets.
But if you do that and you don't have anything in your scene, you're going to be confused because it's not going to do anything because it's asking you for an input.
I mean, like, hey, what's happening here? What's going on in this crazy program? So it's really geared towards getting Cinema 4D users acclimated to the way that Houdini wants you to think. You know, it's a lot of like the basic stuff about, you know, attributes and groups and you know, splitting things up and using work streams, but kind of framed around Cinema 4D. So we start in Cinema 4D, we do a bunch of work in Houdini, and then we end in Cinema 4D. So it's really this kind of like round tripping process. And that's, you know, it's one of what is going to be several things that we do over at GSG Plus. So I've got a bunch more planned for 2020. So that'll be that'll be coming soon.
The Year of Houdini.
Year of
Houdini. Did you do Houdini stuff at Perception as well, or were you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Black Panther was actually the first project where we really heavily used Houdini, and actually the first project where we really heavily used Redshift. It was
Cool.
It was quite a thing. But yeah, we used Houdini a whole bunch on Black Panther. We worked on that movie for a really long time, like 18 months.
Wow.
So we were pretty deep in it on the tech work, and Houdini was really essential, especially when it came to all the sand stuff, because like all the holograms are made of sand and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So conceptualizing and visualizing that kind of stuff so that the filmmakers could take that and use it as a guide for actors on set or for the vendors who were actually going to create the final look of the holograms in the end. Houdini was essential, and then we used it a ton for the title sequence and for the prologue at the beginning of the movie as well.
Let me ask you this: when you're going through, when you're getting such a high-profile job like Black Panther or something like that, or one of the big Marvel movies, it's like how do they determine which shots? Because there were a lot of studios working on all these Marvel movies.
Tons.
You watch the credits,
Tons.
you'll see tons and tons and tons of big name studios working on
Yeah,
these.
I've always wanted to know that.
Which ones you will work on and which ones other teams will work on? I'm assuming it's based on like their strengths and weaknesses and such.
Yeah,
right.
But like,
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure there's some where they're like, okay, do they go through and like key the footage first before they give it to you, or do other studios take it first and then give it to you, or how does that work?
Man, it totally depends.
How many shots do y'all end up doing over the course of one movie?
That depends too. So it really depends on what their needs are, So we've been, for a long time, the owners, Danny and Jeremy at Perception, have had a long-standing relationship with the executive team and Kevin Feige and everybody over at Marvel Studios. Long before they were even making movies, they'd done some work with them. So in the beginning, the need was almost always for like holograms and FUI and screen graphics and that kind of thing.
For sure.
It was around the time of Doctor Strange that they came to us for something that wasn't necessarily a final piece. They'd asked us to help out with that like really crazy, super trippy kind of sequence in sort of the first third of Doctor Strange, where he like travels through the multiverse and has all this like crazy body horror stuff going on. So we did some conceptual work around that, and it really was all about kind of working at this sort of medium-ish fidelity, because we knew that like nothing that we were doing was for final shots, and it was still like very conceptual. So that kind of opened the door for a lot of these kind of conceptual experiments. So they still were coming to us for final shots, and for those, the trajectory a lot of times would start with here's one sequence for screen graphics that we want you guys to do. And we've got other screen graphics in the movies, but we've got other vendors working on those. We've got holograms, but other vendors working on those. And we end up with a sequence of let's say 15 shots, 20 shots, whatever it is. But then as the production rolls along and as things change and evolve, and they always do reshoots, so they always have like a big chunk of shots that now need new vendors working on them or whatever. A lot of times the ask tends to grow, and we'll start a feature with a handful of shots or a couple sequences or a couple pieces of technology that appear in a few moments in the movie that needs some storytelling, visuals that go with them, and then that tends to grow and balloon into something that's significantly more than that. Black Panther was a little different. So Black Panther came after we had done the sort of conceptual development work on Doctor Strange, and we'd been working with Marvel Studios so much around technology and around this sort of like development of this, like they're really cool to work with because they really care about sort of the role that plays in their movies and in the greater MCU as a whole, which is, it's really, really cool because it could very easily go the other way. And we've worked with people who are just like, yeah, I don't know, just throw some blue shit on the wall. Who cares? It's just set dressing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
To a lot of people. And fair enough. Like sometimes that stuff just exists to make the character look cool or like look super smart or whatever.
Yeah.
But Marvel Studios has always seemed to really care about the role that technology plays, and specifically when it came to Black Panther, the world of Wakanda was entirely steeped in technology. They're like the most technologically advanced. So we got involved with them really early on, like before the script was even locked.
Wow.
To help kind of conceptualize moments where technology would be very heavily featured. And even before that had started, they had come to us and asked for like a tech audit, if you will. Like, hey, what are some cool like emerging technologies or things that are out there that are really unique and interesting that we can start to kind of weave into this story that we're crafting? So we did this sort of tech audit where it was really more it was entirely conceptual, like nothing that we had actually really produced aside from a handful of sketches and things. And based on that, they came back and they were saying, they would come to us with like a 6 or an 8 week chunk of time and said, okay, let's explore these 3 key technologies. What are some ways that these can function in the world? What are some ways that, sand can be used to create an image? Or, like if I had we did a lot of work with the Komoyo beads, the beads that they wear around their wrist that turn into holograms and have all kinds of functions and features. The way that Black Panther's suit comes on, this sort of like nanotechnology thing that like follows these like kind of lighting tattoos, if you will, like under his skin where it kind of like forms over his body. So we did tons and tons of work on that stuff. So we'd spent a really significant amount of time, well over a year, just doing these conceptual experiments and exploring and really working closely with them, with the director, Ryan Coogler, with the entire executive team, with Hannah Beechler, I think is how you pronounce her name. She was the production designer who actually won an Oscar for the movie.
Wow.
Do they shoot stuff for you, like sample stuff for that R&D?
No. So
or do you just use the intern?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Check this out.
Like, all right, dance around in the corner. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
No, they'd send us, anything that they had, but, things were very much in pre-production for the most part. So, we get pre-production assets if they had them, scans if we had them. But a lot of times we'd have to kind of make it up as we go along. And really the whole point was to help them flesh out these moments or these technologies so that they can show an actor on set like what is going to happen, because they don't have a crazy sand hologram, right? And then to also show like the visual effects artists at ILM or Method or any of these crazy studios that are actually doing the rendering and the compositing and the creating of these things for the final shots. They would use presumably, I don't know, I wasn't there, but like presumably they're using our conceptual development to give them a guide to follow that says like, okay, well, when she holds her hand out, the bead will roll out and it will form this sand hologram. And it should sort of look and behave kind of roughly like this. And it should have like an image projected on it, so it looks like a real thing, but the back should be like kind of sandy and wobbly and still feel like you get a sense of that technology that's built into it. It was a once in a lifetime experience. It was really incredible.
Because there's
awesome.
there's like so many studios, and when I'm watching a movie and I see at the end that like 10 different studios worked on something, the first thing that goes through my mind is, man, how did they keep everything consistent? You know,
Yeah.
because it's so hard to do.
It's really hard to do. So they're a well-oiled machine these days. So they have a very strict set of rules that every studio follows, so that everything ends up in the same color space and ends up looking the same. Everything is submitted in a way that is easy for their kind of like ingestion system to take, because they have, you think about like when they're in full on post-production mode, they're looking at hundreds, if not thousands of shots of visual effects a day. They're just watching over and over and over and over, and they have to review with studios and VFX artists and everything. Like it is a crazy undertaking. I can only imagine the infrastructure that they must have in place to work as efficiently as they do. It's insane.
Because it's insane. You don't necessarily, you're not going to have 100% picture lock at any given time. Do they give you, is it down to the frame, or do you put padding on things, or like, is that the type of?
So we always do 8 frames of head and tail. Usually they ask for overscan. So, if the movie's delivering at 2K, you render a little bit more than 2K. So that they can kind of take it and move it around and that kind of thing. Always delivering EXRs, so they have like the full range of color to work with. The EXRs are always run through a color pipe that they've built in the very beginning of the movie. And each one is different. So, of course, working with that is always a little bit of a challenge, at least in the beginning, to like figure out how to work with whatever the specific show's color pipe is. But yeah, absolutely. It's a massive undertaking. And, Perception being a relatively small studio, especially compared to like ILM and Method and MPC and all these huge monster behemoth studios, we're just a small blip on their radar, but they always kind of treated us with an equal amount of respect when it came to, working with such gargantuan studios on these huge projects. It was insane. And
Billy was asking, and you answered some of this, but he was asking about, the staging for these different phases, pre-pro and R&D and all of that.
Yes.
How do you even go about keeping track of all of this?
Well, a lot of times naming an organization is incredibly important, just as a rule on any project, whether it's a giant feature or like a commercial or just a personal project you're doing. Like naming an organization is absolutely essential, because ultimately it's gonna save you when you're in crunch time, when things are going really crazy and you've got 1 hour to do a whole day's worth of work, and you're like, oh my God, where's that file? Like, you don't want to spend all your time looking for the correct file. You want to know exactly where it is. So naming conventions are always really important. A lot of times what'll happen is you'll have a different set of naming conventions for pre-production or pre-viz than you will for the final picture. You'll start with like a pre-viz naming convention, and everybody will work in that. So you understand, like, just without even opening the file, I can look at it and tell you, oh, that's a pre-production file, or that's an animation test, or that's a color sample, or just a still image, or whatever it is, that level of organization was absolutely essential. And really, it's something that personally I think should be implemented no matter what you're doing, whether it's a feature film or not. Stay organized, because it'll save you every time.
Now, my question too is, when in any of these studios, really, when you sit down to work on a shot like that, are you doing everything from start to finish, or are there people that do like just 3D tracking and just keying, and or is it a mix of both?
Good question. Yeah, it totally depends. A lot of times what they'll do is, we'll work on a shot that has like a screen comped in, but there's a whole like background of visual effects stuff going on that we aren't responsible for. Set extensions and
right.
Digital prosthetics and all kinds of like it's crazy. So a lot of times we do end up working with other studios, and a lot of it kind of depends on what the needs are for that particular shot. If all we're doing is screen graphics, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll send us, whatever studio did the tracking, they'll send us all the tracking data or any LiDAR data or any, digital assets that they have. We'll do like what we need to do for approval purposes and make sure that, whatever screens we've got or whatever holograms there are doing what they need to do, and they're not being obscured by something important in the shot or whatever, that they're telling the story. That they're telling a story effectively to everybody in a very clear way. And then we'll end up like submitting assets to whatever studio, and they'll do the final comp because they've got some like giant set in the background that they're doing, or, comping a city or whatever. Like we did that a lot with Thor Ragnarok when we were doing holograms for the ships and everything in the Sakaar chase scene. Obviously that entire city is like a huge visual effects scene. And so what we would do is just get the tracking data and just focus on the tiny little component that we were doing, and then send it all over to the team doing the actual final shot and, like comping the ship and all that stuff. So, but then there's some shots that we would do start to finish, where they would just send us plates and we would do everything from soup to nuts. That was it.
Were there any shots that you were doing specifically for the movie that ended up just getting cut entirely? You're like, oh, I spent so much time on that.
Yeah, that's always it's always a danger. But at the end of the day, you just sort of have to trust that the director is making those decisions, for the betterment of the film, and you just don't, you don't take it personally. But yeah, sometimes it's frustrating. You're like, oh, that was so cool, and now it's gone. Oh well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those are the kinds of things that you probably will never be able to show and be like, well, yeah, it hit the cutting room floor, and then nobody wants to talk about it. So
well, and even the things that you do work on that do make the movie, sometimes you're not allowed to show. That's got to be a little bit frustrating, because if that's all you're working on all of the time, then you're like, oh, all this stuff I want to show.
And that's kind of the thing with the tech work, just in general, as well, as like that stuff we'll never be able to show or talk about for the most part.
Right.
Because so much of it is so much conceptual development that's like locked away in a vault somewhere, never to see the light of day.
Right.
And we've, signed our lives away on NDAs, and can't ever talk about it, can't show it, can't claim it.
Well,
but
Matt and I did a project for Perception one time too, and it's like, man, never show it. We can never show it. Yeah.
It's locked away in a vault somewhere, and that's it. It is what it is. It comes with some really interesting problems to solve, though, and I think that's so much the benefit of that kind of work, is like you're working directly with the people who are, a lot of times you're working directly with the engineers, you're working with executives, you're working with the people who are actually going to take this thing and try and make it for real in the real world. Yeah. And it's a fascinating process, man. It really is. That's sort of the trade-off. Like I may never be able to show or talk about any of that stuff, but like those experiences were really, really cool.
So you
Sorry,
left...
I had a bit of an emergency there I had to take care of.
No, not at all.
I pulled a Dave and accidentally spilt soda all over my
no.
keyboard. Yeah.
Oh man, you better get in there. It's not going to work like mine. You're going to have to buy a whole new one.
Diet soda.
Is that good or bad? Does it make it worse?
No, I think it's fine because it's got no sugar in it. So
it's just got a bunch of chemicals that'll corrode it instead. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. No big deal.
Okay, so it's 2020 and everybody, although like I say, I don't like to set goals based on the position of the Earth in space, but a lot of people are setting goals. for this year.
Yeah.
And so, you did your thing in New York. I feel like, it seems right. It seems like a good amount of time. You were there for a good chunk amount of time. You're moving your career forward by making this change. And so how do you kind of keep yourself going, keep yourself moving, and how do you evolve as an artist, when you're working big jobs like this?
Yeah, that's tough sometimes. Although usually, I mean, just like you said, a lot of people like to make sort of New Year's resolutions or whatever. I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy. Because I almost feel like they're sort of made to be broken. Like that's the big joke is like, oh yeah, that's your New Year's resolution. That'll last about 2 weeks. You'll join that gym and then you'll never go.
Yeah.
And then you'll pay for it for a year. That's how they make their money.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the last several years, I've tried to set myself not so much a specific goal, but more of like a broad topic of things to focus on. And obviously several years ago, one of those was Houdini. I beat my head against the wall trying to learn that program for several times. And, 1 year I just committed to it and I sat down and made it happen. But, because last year was so crazy with us getting married and like moving and honeymoon and all that, I mean, everything was nuts. I didn't really have a ton of time for personal development last year. So it's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to now about being, a little bit more settled out here on the West Coast. We've been here for a couple of months, feeling pretty good about that. So I think it's for me personally, it's about setting like a broad goal, like not so much something like, I have to put out X number of personal pieces this year, or I want to work on this kind of project. It's really more about like a general direction that I want to grow in for the year. And I think for me this year, I haven't fully nailed it down yet. But I do want to do more personal work. I haven't really done much of that the last couple of years because things have been so busy. And so I want to get more into doing some work for myself. So that'll be a big focus for me this year, I think, regardless of what direction I end up sort of picking to grow in. But that seems to work pretty well for me, at least, like just the way that I work. I like to have a little bit more wiggle room, a little less of like rigid boundaries.
Yeah. How's your stress level since going freelance?
Fantastic. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's certainly stressful to not have the guarantee of a paycheck every couple of weeks. But again, it's the kind of thing that I've done this before. Like I know how to kind of weather the storms of slow times in the freelance world. And thus far, it seems like Los Angeles has just a ridiculous amount of work at the moment. A lot of people these days, a lot of the more experienced artists are actually jumping ship and heading to the tech sector. So it's left this kind of like gap in capabilities in a lot of these spaces where it used to be like flooded with people who are, like there was more senior artists than you can count. And these days, I feel like so many of those artists have gone in-house at big tech companies or startups or whatever, just because it's, they pay well and it's very consistent work. But for freelancers, I feel like it's kind of a benefit in a way, because it shrinks the pool, but the need is still there. At least that's what I've noticed so far. Maybe other people have seen differently.
Yeah.
Are you working with anybody, any of our other Mograph friends over there right now?
Not at the moment. I did, let's see, I had drinks with Trevor Kerr a little while ago. You guys know Trevor, I'm sure.
Yeah. What about Aaron Coverett? Have you seen him out there yet?
No, I haven't. No, not yet. Brandon Parvini. So
that guy.
Oh yeah,
Brandon's great.
He's my favorite.
Matt's man crush.
It's
Yeah,
true.
he's great.
Yeah.
He was actually really helpful when we were talking about moving out here.
Mhm.
He'd been, he's been here forever. He's been here for a really long time. He has a really good sense of, how freelance works in the city, what neighborhoods are, fun to live in, and that kind of thing. So he was a great kind of mind to pick when we were talking about where to live and, what to do and all that fun stuff. So yeah, Brandon's awesome. He's great.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Now, the next question here is, we at Camp Mograph this year, we were at,
which I sadly missed. I'm
yeah,
so sorry.
Yeah.
We were.
Hey, you got
we
this
were,
year.
Yeah, this
exactly.
year.
Well, yeah, and it's West Coast this time, right? Like
Yes,
it's out
Portland,
in my neck of the woods.
Oregon.
Yes.
From LA,
place.
it's like $180 round trip.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah, that's I'm sorry I had to miss it. We were we were deep in the middle of shaking our life up at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
not too bad a trip.
Sorry to interrupt.
You could take you could take a car up the coast there.
Yeah, dude.
Take that highway up
RV
there.
up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Rent an RV for a week, drive it up, drive it back.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
There's place to park an RV.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an RV hookup though.
Yeah, that's okay.
We can find out for you.
Yeah.
The thing is that there was a lot of talk after Camp Mograph about like inspirations that come from external sources, because that's really kind of all we did at Camp Mograph is just unplug and do other things. And I feel like, even myself and other people that I see posting on the camp alumni Facebook page, like look at what Mark Thornton did. We'll have to we're gonna do a little contest here pretty soon with that too. We need to mention that. I need to write that down so that I don't forget about that. But
I had no idea we were doing a contest, but cool.
Yeah, we were talking about doing a little contest thing. But the thing is, like, everybody came back and was posting things about how they got inspiration by being away from the computer.
Yeah.
And that just seems like it's something that everybody needs right now.
Being away for a little bit gives you a chance, even though you're still, talking to people about the industry or doing things that are semi-related to the industry, just getting away and doing something completely different. It's like being on a project for a year.
Absolutely.
And then stepping away and doing a very simple explainer video. It like gives you a chance to just kind of clear your head and then jump back in.
Recharge the creative batteries a little bit. That's super important, man. And we, I feel like everybody in the industry sort of hits these points where they're just grinding really hard. We've all hit those points where things are just super intense. You can't step away. And after those are done, I don't know about you guys, but I always kind of feel this like, what do I do now? Now that I'm not working on this project for, 17 hours a day, what do I do with myself? Like, what was my life before this thing? And, I feel like those are the times when it's really important to step away and not look at a glowing rectangle for a while.
Yeah.
And to, or at least look at some things that aren't motion graphics related, right?
Yeah.
Like I love looking at, I love watching movies and TV and things like that. But, go to an art museum, go, I don't know, go see live theater if that's something that you have available to you. Go see a comedy show, go see something.
Watch Cats.
Right.
Yeah,
Cats.
geez.
That movie is supposed to be insane.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's supposed to be nuts.
We should have a conversation. Actually, can we do that real quick? Can we go to some links?
Sure, let's do it.
I want to, because I have this in my links, and the one thing that I don't like about articles these days online is there's just
so clickbaity.
There's no content, and it's all ads in like 2 paragraphs. And but this one article was it's Cats VFX team explains what went wrong with the movie. Russ, I'm sure you heard about all of that.
I thought you were gonna link to the article about the guy who took a bunch of mushrooms and then went and saw cats.
I didn't hear about that.
Was a pretty fun article. Yeah.
Oh man,
that's funny.
That sounds like a recipe for nightmares. Yeah. No, it's funny because this I think is the first time at least a major public release has been like patched after it was released.
Yeah.
Super weird. Like they sent out like redone, improved visual effects. And from what I saw, they didn't look any good.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, no. Have you seen? There was a GIF going around that was a moment where I don't even know what insanity was taking place, but there were a bunch of cockroaches with faces.
Yeah,
and it looked abysmal. It just didn't like. It looked like a weird fever dream, you know. Like, and it kind of made me want to see the movie.
I know all these people are talking about how, you know, terrible it is, or how the VFX is like rough, you know, and it's like, okay, now I want to see what it's all about.
Is it going to be one of those things where it's like a tradition to go watch it, you know, and make fun of it? What's the movie that everybody goes to see? The you know what I'm talking about, right? What?
Oh, you're talking about like The Room?
Like
Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yeah. Well, and The Room. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, Rocky Horror is a little different just because it's not so much that it's not a bad movie. Essentially, it's very participatory, and I think that's what people get really into. The Room is ostensibly a bad movie.
Oh, it's
so bad that you kind of have to watch it. It's kind of like Troll 2, you know, like it sort of fits into that realm. And you know, just touching back on Cats really quick, you know, it may not necessarily be the visual effects artists that were, you know, it's not like they hired a bunch of goobers that didn't know how to do it. I mean, incredibly talented people worked on that movie. But likely under very difficult circumstances, you know, for whatever reason. So, you know, we can't necessarily cast the blame on them for how.
I'm sure it wasn't just like a handful of VFX people working on the show. I'm sure it was a whole team,
and that's
an
why
entire army of people.
That's why I feel like you're such a great person to talk to about this, because you've been in that pipeline before, you know, and it's.
And actually, speaking of that, have you ever seen shots from the Marvel movies where you're just like, oh man, you know, like that other teams have done? Or maybe not Marvel, maybe some of the other movies where you're like, oh, I feel like we could have done that a lot better.
Well, I mean, when you see something, when we're in this kind of like super tight niche that we are, there's always a bit of like kind of comparison, right? Like you always look at something and say, oh man, that's really cool. I wish I had thought of that. Or like, wow, crap, I could have done that a whole lot better than what they did. But the thing is, when you go and see a movie, all you're seeing is the end result. You're not seeing any of the process. You're not seeing any of the back and forth. Maybe the director didn't give a shit that looked stupid. Maybe there was a producer on the movie that like made a bad call and sent you down a weird direction. And then, I mean, these kind of things happen. Like there's so many people involved, and it's I think as a viewer, it's easy to look at it in a vacuum and say, well, that looked dumb. That looked terrible. But like, you don't know what conversations or what circumstances. That could have been what a shot that somebody dropped on. Yeah, exactly. Like, well, you know, you paid us, you know, a third of what we're used to be getting paid. You get what you pay for. Or like, you know, you gave us that shot with 2 days to do a month's worth of work. What do you expect? Like, there's only so much you can do with what you're given and circumstances. You know, I mean, it could be that there were, you know, internal issues, or there's all kinds of things that happen behind the scenes that you don't see when you go see the final product. Yeah. And so I always, you know, as rough as some visual effects can look, and certainly from what I understand, Cats looks super rough. You kind of have to be a little forgiving with all the people who were involved in that, because there were so many people, and they're working with the best that they can do, you know, with what they're doing.
I get the
How do you
vibe
feel
that
about
it's
that first Sonic trailer.
Oh geez. Well, before you hit that though, the thing that I heard about cats is, and this is the whole video game mentality, right? We'll just kind of put it out there and then we'll fix it later. They were, you know, the fact that they were sending shots and new versions back to the theater. It's like, if you, the way you would know is if you were watching in the theater and some of the cats still had their human hands. That's how you would know if you were on the original version of it or the finalized version of it. And to me, that sounds like a top-down thing. Yeah, I mean, they would just be standing there in just regular hands, you know? And it's like, that sounds top-down. That sounds like a management thing. It sounds like they were rushing it out because they want to get consideration for 2019 awards. It's like, just slow down and do it right.
Well, I think a lot of the problem too, specifically with feature films, is once you set a release date, and from what I understand, I to be clear, I don't know a great deal about this process, but just getting a date for national release is like a whole industry in itself, right? Because you're up against major studios who are all jockeying for, you know, that top spot. And you see a lot of times when release dates tend to change by a week or two or whatever here and there, sometimes it's because there's another big release that, you know, your multi-million-dollar movie, you don't want to be up against another studio's multi-million-dollar movie.
Right.
You want to have that like a week or two of gap where you are the only show in town and everybody's talking about your movie before the next big thing comes out.
Right.
So much of the time, like, you have a very hard deadline. Like, this movie comes out this day and that is it. Like, not budging, nothing is happening to change that. Like, whatever we have done at that time is what the public sees.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's kind of the thing that everybody is working against. You know, when you're working on a commercial, sometimes depending on, like, if it's, you know, if it's going in front of the Super Bowl, obviously you have a pretty hard deadline, but like sometimes you can push it a week or two and like some people get a little huffy about it, but whatever. Like, that happens, you know, just due to decision-making processes or whatever. But like with a feature film, you can't, like, that's it. Your deadline is fixed for the most part. So the fact that they released a product and then released a patch was super weird. And there's part of me that's a little concerned about that precedent being established.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Totally agree with you.
It's kind of a dangerous door to open.
The one thing that worries me about going down this path is it goes back to the original Star Wars trilogy. You know, when George Lucas made all his updates and re-released them in the theater, you know, when we were in middle school or high school or elementary school or whatever, you know, when he re-released them, at no point now, unless you find an old VHS, you know, or the laser disc of the original movie,
or the torrent,
can you see George Lucas's original version of the movie as it was originally done. You know, you go on to Disney Plus, it's like, nope, you get the updated
of course
version, you know, and it's like, that's not what I want to see. I want to see the original version. And it's kind of sucky because with Cats, I want to see the crappy version. I don't want to see the updates, you know. I want to, if they had kept the bad version there, maybe it would become some sort of B movie, you know, or like it would become a hit just by its memeability.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. I mean, I also think about, you know, I mean, maybe it'll be like a DVD extra, or maybe it'll be like a parallel release or something like that. It also depends, I guess, on like how many shots they really changed. Did they change a handful because they just couldn't get them done, or did they like drastically unilaterally change a whole bunch of stuff? It makes me think of like, you know, the latest Mad Max movie, which was just amazing. You know, they had said that when they were watching it, so when they're scoring a movie like that, they'll have a kind of a rough cut, like black and white version without any audio that they use to actually score the movie. And that's what's projecting up in the, you know, in the orchestra chamber or wherever they're actually doing the recording. And so the conductor is working to the picture so that they can get like the right swells and the right kind of down notes. They can have that dynamic. Mm-hmm. Well, when they were making that was actually like the director's favorite version of the movie, from what I understand, like totally silent, black and white, like really stripped back. And I always found that super interesting. They actually did release a, I think they called it black and chrome version of the movie that I bought, which honestly I was a little disappointed in, just because it didn't seem like they bothered to do anything other than just remove the color, which is kind of a bummer, because you have like so much of that movie is about these moments where you have like the red flame in front of this blue sky. And when you take all the color out of it, you don't see that anymore because the values are very similar. Yeah. So it just ends up being kind of a mush. Like it didn't seem like they put a great deal of time and energy. I don't know, maybe they did. But it seemed like it could have been pushed a little further in the realm of color to make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, you never know if those are going to be on point. Like, for example, I actually prefer the director's cut of Donnie Darko because it makes a little bit more sense. You know, they explain a couple more things that you were like, wait, what is going on? You never know. And like Billy saying,
maybe I didn't see that version because I didn't understand it.
Well, yeah, the director's cut, it actually has some scenes in it where you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense now. You know, I understand what they were getting at, because it's a good movie. It's amazing. It makes you want just a little bit more, though. I wanted a little bit more out of Donnie Darko. What Billy was saying, though, in the chat was that the internet is working to restore the original version of Star Wars as close to the current Blu-ray version as possible, getting all these clips.
Oh, that's awesome.
People restoring them and stuff. And
see, but the thing is, like, if the original version had been updated in the middle of, you know, the product, or in the middle of like being out in the theater, we never get to see that original cut.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is the despecialized versions of the original trilogy that exist that have some of those shots removed. But I don't know.
The thing about that, so like they released episode 4, 5, 6 on like DVD or Blu-ray or something, and then had the despecialized versions, but they were just rips of the Laserdisc that still had it in 4:3 with letterbox.
Oh yeah.
So if you're watching it on a 16:9 TV, you get letterbox pillar box at the same time, and it's like, ugh.
And
gross.
There's a version out there online too, where Jar Jar has been removed from the movie completely. Which is great.
That's fantastic.
Mac, what's up, Mac? In the Facebook chat there, he says he was mentioning when Spielberg replaced the guns in E.T. with walkie-talkies. But the good thing though is that Spielberg did come back and reverse that. I think that he was like, you know what? You all know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
So there's a scene in E.T. where they're all on their bikes. No spoilers. But they're all...
Oh, man, I haven't seen E.T.
They ride bikes?
I haven't seen it yet. And tell me what happens. They're going down the street, and they're coming up on all these cop cars that have a blockade, and all of the cops are holding, like, shotguns in their hands. You know, it was the 70s. Nobody cared. And then they came out with a new version later, and they replaced digitally all the shotguns with walkie-talkies. But then Spielberg actually came back around in the end, and when they did like the new whatever remastered Blu-ray version, he actually put it back to the original. He's like, no, we're not going to do that. Let's just go back to the original.
It was the 2002 edition where they replaced it. Wow, they replaced a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I just looked up E.T. shotguns walkie-talkies on YouTube, and they actually did a whole bunch of like CGI E.T.s as well.
I think somebody did a spoof at one point where they replaced lots of things in different movies with walkie-talkies.
I hate that they're like. I really wish they would go back to some more puppetry stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Like
So,
Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
Baby Yoda
I
is
know.
awesome.
Baby Yoda's amazing.
You know?
Yeah.
I think for me, one of my favorite visual effects movies of all time is The Thing, and that was done in like 1981, or it came out in 1981. It was probably being worked on in the late 70s. But man, the visual effects in that movie are just insane, and they're so gross and nasty. And I don't know if there's any truth to the rumor that the prequel that they did, which was also weirdly called The Thing, which doesn't make any sense, but like they did like a prequel movie in the mid 2000s, and the rumor was that they had actually shot the entire thing with practical effects sort of in the style of the original movie, and that then later they had replaced all that with CGI, and the CGI did not look spectacular because it was the mid 2000s. Things were a little rough around the edges still, but I would have found it so much more compelling if they had kept the original like puppets and things like on set that they were working with, like, because that's so much of that particular film's aesthetic. But I love that stuff, like the original Alien and Aliens movies, like, all that stuff. It was Alien 3 when they started using CG aliens that just looked terrible. It just did not look good. Like, it just wasn't there yet. But with you on the puppet thing.
Billy's.
Have y'all seen the short film I'm Here by Spike Jonze?
No.
It's so good. It's about this like computer-esque, like these humanoid computers and stuff like that. And they do something similar that they do on Where the Wild Things Are, where it's like CGI, like eye blinks and stuff like that, but incorporating, practical stuff with CGI, and it just looks so real. It feels real.
Yeah, because most of the time it is. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's I think that's where things get very compelling visually, is when you're working with a practical asset, but then you're supplementing it with a little bit of CGI. I think that's, when it's done tastefully, I think that's really cool. And Where the Wild Things Are is great. That's a good example of that.
Billy said that
movie,
I guess the people who are putting together the recreations of some of these movies are using things like, AI upscaling and all these new technologies to restore it themselves. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Other couple links I had real quick. One of them was, I haven't even been able to dig into the article because I just saw it the other day. I think Arya posted it online, and it's a lighting artist from a 3D film, a 3D feature film, kind of shows and explains how important lighting is in 3D films.
Yes,
did you see that?
I saw this.
Yeah.
This was awesome. Actually, so the movie that he's showing off is Spies in Disguise. As dumb as it sounds, a pigeon movie with Will Smith.
Yeah.
It was so good. I really liked it.
I actually have a buddy of mine named John Coltai. He did a lot of work with us at Perception. He did all of the holograms and screen graphics and design in that movie. So
very cool. Yeah, it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it.
It's awesome.
Me, my wife, and my kid went and saw it like this past weekend or something. And my kid he's been watching the trailer. He watches these trailers over and over and over again. So he knows all these movies. He knows all the stupid lines, and we go and see it. And it was a very enjoyable movie. But yeah, this is fantastic.
Yeah, they have all these before and afters, which are really great. I guess they kind of light it pretty flat to start out, and somebody comes in and really tweaks it.
Look at some of the daylight versus the or like go up to where the car is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's super
look
flat.
At that. Like you just showing like a night lighting a nighttime scene and stuff like that. That's so rad.
It's really cool. And that's, it just goes to show, like, with these features, there's so many people that touch each single shot. like all the people that do the animation, like everything is very bucketed out. Like it follows a very, at least a lot of the times it follows a very kind of rigid pipeline from, character animation and rigging and simulation and animation, lighting and compositing and all that stuff. And you have, different departments that are handling all of these things sort of assembly line style. And it's never down to just one person who's handling the whole thing. It's a massive team. So, you see these things, whether they're like good or bad, there's possibly 50 or 100 people that touched a shot, whether or not they were producers or, they were working on the shot themselves. There's tons of people that make these things come to life. It's really cool.
Yeah. Dave, I sent you another link for once we get to links.
Oh, you did?
Unless we're
we're
there.
in links.
Yeah.
Where? Oh, in the Dingus?
I don't know if you have this in there, but it's someone posted it in the Slack, and it's so super cool. I don't know if you can bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it?
But so it's called Still File. It's a series of 4 photographs recreating 3D renders. So as you scroll down, these are all actually photographs that they took in order to make it look like 3D renders.
Oh, yeah. So what's crazy is there's the one with the teapots.
Yeah.
They're all really beautiful. But the one with the teapots reminds me of an artist that I saw, and forgive me, I do not remember the name of the artist, but he creates these sculptures just like this, but with like real world objects that you can walk around in a room. The one that really screwed me up was the telephone booth. So like you walk into a room and the only thing in the room is like an old school like telephone booth, but it's like, it looks like you took it and like stretched it and skewed it in 3D space. And it is so dizzying. Like as soon as you walk in that room, like you kind of get unstable because it like really messes with your sense of perspective and reality. But he had a bunch of skulls that he took and did these kind of like stretching and warping things. He had like a pistol that he took and did, and like an old telephone and chairs and things like that. But the phone booth was the one that really screwed me up because it was the only thing in the room, and you go in and this thing is like so distorted, but it's real and you can walk around it and you're like, I don't even know if I can be in this room and not feel like I'm dizzy. Like it's nuts, man. It's so cool. But that stuff is amazing. I love that.
Yeah. That's super neat. I love the second one, the floating colored cube.
Yes.
Because they added like a gradated, like a poorly, like an 8-bit gradated, or whatever. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Neat.
The gradient banding in the background.
Yeah. The banding. Yeah.
That's so cool. These are awesome.
Yeah. Also, breaking news right now.
Oh, breaking.
Yeah, I just came down the pipe in text form from EJ. I guess.
Did you see the? Yeah.
I guess Merck. Everybody was kind of wondering what happened to Merck, and so somebody wrote something. Somebody wrote something online and said, "Hey, what happened? Is he okay? Blah blah blah." And then he replied with a video, and it looks like he got in an accident.
Apparently, like busted up his arm and his hand, and like he's healing from stitches or something like that. Like
I'm guessing he's left-handed.
Yeah,
he can't move his hand. Crazy. That sucks.
Oof.
Oh, Merc, we wish you the best.
Thoughts and prayers.
I didn't know AI could injure their hands, but apparently so. Man, the last link that I have here was the one on The Verge this week, Beeple article.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Yeah. Motorcycle accident.
Motorcycle. Yeah, that's what it looked like on the man.
Ouch.
Yeah, there's a whole Verge article on Beeple, so we'll post that in the show notes as well. And so on that note, I think we should probably go to Beeple's people.
Let's do it.
All right. This is the first time I get to say this. Get out your Beeple viewer of choice. Mine's going to be Twitter. And go to January 2nd, Year Overlord 2020.
Oh, snap.
First time I get to say that. January 2nd, This is... It's called 2019 Problems. And I kind of like this. I'm going to bring it up here so you can see. This is... I
loved this one. I thought this was beautiful.
It's like 2019 problems in 2020. It's like your problems from last year following you. Or maybe you're getting rid of them. I don't know. One of the two.
Yeah.
And it's really pretty. It's got...
it's very pretty. I love the canted angle. I love the composition.
That big one is just looming.
I feel like it's got the golden spiral. I can see that a little bit.
All right.
Going out to the big guy or whatever.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
And the colors, the
colors, children. I won't enjoy it on as many levels as I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really great one. I don't know if this has deeper meaning for him. Probably not. But that's a good one. And then the next one is January 3rd, War Machine Wet Dream. And I'm assuming that this is because of the Trump-Iran situation right now.
Yes,
probably why.
That's the day that he posted it.
Yeah, I think that was when it first kind of. And
feel the bab, everyone. Feel the bab.
Feel the bab.
Paul Bab
2020.
There you go.
More now than ever.
Yep.
Yeah. What are we gonna do after 2020?
Paul Bab 2024. If he doesn't win.
Oh, okay. Well, he'll win though, right?
He'll win.
Is he running?
Come on.
Paul, that guy's great.
Yeah.
I am so sure of it. I'm not gonna vote.
Yeah, good idea. I'm sure that'll work out fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really great. Mech Warrior Trump, all the little troops on the bottom. I'm trying to see if there are any Easter eggs or anything in here. I wonder where he gets...
I was curious if he was gonna, starting in 2020, if he was gonna move away from that type of stuff, but it doesn't seem like it.
Actually, that's a good question. But I don't know. I don't know if he has the same fiscal year, so to speak, when it comes to his art. I think he may do those transitions when he hits his year marker rather than the beginning of the year.
You know what? No, I bet you if you look at yesterday's, I think he's got a new target.
Is it Dying Star? Maybe. Is that yesterday? That's the next one.
No, that's Dying Star is beautiful.
You talking about Kids After 9 p.m.?
Yeah.
Well, that still kind of has the look. This whole but light,
he's
like
going
front light.
Go-Gurt now instead of Hot Pockets.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah.
But he's still doing the whole pig thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Trying to figure out the pig thing.
You go back to Dying Star. That one was really good.
Yeah, Dying Star.
He actually used a baby fetus in a good way instead of a beeple way.
A beeple way. This one feels like it comes back a little bit to the, 2016 Beeple, 2017 Beeple.
Yeah.
With the kind of, you feel like there's an ongoing story here, some explorers looking for something, maybe they found that somewhere or something. But the painted look, he's been putting the painted look on everything. I don't know if it's just that one filter program that...
Yeah, I think it's just the filter program.
What is it called again? I bought it and I don't even remember what it's called. It is a cool filter program, just the interface is a little wonky.
Yeah.
But
there's one called Alien Skin. Is that one?
It's not that one.
Yeah.
No. It's I don't remember.
He does a weird mix though, because I don't think the background has the same painted effect. Or these stars I think would get a little muddy. Don't you think these stars would get muddy if you started putting all that on there?
Maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I really like that one. Meaning wise, I don't know. Dying Star, I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know.
That'd be
Topaz,
a tough one.
That's it.
Topaz, yeah, that's it. Oh, but that's really good. I'm waiting for the movie, the Beeple's People movie. I guess there needs to be a book. I've got it
written in my head.
There needs to be a book first. I have a fun little story in my head, but I don't think I'll ever have time to write it down.
Right. We'll do that after we, after we launch this course.
Yeah, there you go. No, then I got to get back on the tutorials. See, I have I have 2 different tutorial series planned. So,
got a whole backlog, man.
oh,
Yeah.
I got a backlog for years that I've been working on my. You should see my notes over here. I have like tutorial ideas from like the last 3 years. So,
Yeah.
sure half of them aren't even applicable anymore. So, okay, we're going to do a thing now called Mograph Recommends. And this is where we talk to you about your favorite stuff and things. And this is going to be interesting. And before we start this, though, I would like to ask one question that I forgot to ask earlier, which is, what has been your favorite movie to work on so far?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a great question. So certainly my favorite experience was Black Panther for sure. And I'm sorry, my dog is hearing somebody outside. So if you hear her barking or whining, she's calming herself down. She's okay. Certainly my favorite experience was Black Panther. And I think that's probably also going to be the one that I say is my favorite one that I've worked on. And so much of that, of course, is colored by my experience, but I think just kind of where that movie sits in the MCU, but also just kind of culturally, I think it struck a really, really good note. Really enjoyed that one.
Cool. All right. Well,
was that the longest one y'all worked on?
The longest time we'd spent working on one, yeah, for sure.
Because of all the R&D, especially, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we did, we did all the pre-production, and then we also did like the title sequence at the end of the movie, and then we did a bunch of conceptual, and developmental animation previs stuff for the prologue at the beginning of the movie, and that was weeks and weeks and weeks of work as well. So lots of work done on there. Thor Ragnarok kind of falls into that category as well, where you spent a bunch of time doing development, but then ended up doing shots and the title sequence and all that fun stuff. So
I love Ragnarok.
Yeah, it was
such a fun movie.
It really was. It was a fun one. Really enjoyed that one.
What's the director's name?
Taika Waititi.
Yeah. He did the are you up to date on The Mandalorian?
Yes. Yep. We finished it this week.
He did that. He directed the last episode, and you can absolutely tell, that is definitely,
the banter at the beginning with Jason Sudeikis. That's hilarious.
So good.
Very good.
All right. So now we know your favorite one to work on, but what's your favorite one to watch? What's your favorite movie in general?
Yeah. So it's a really hard question. Can I give you a few that I love?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Nope. Sorry. It has to be only one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big, like the ones that I really love to watch over and over, I never get sick of. Aliens, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. I'm a big John Carpenter fan. Like I love John Carpenter. I also really love like James Cameron's movies, T2 and Aliens and True Lies, I think is just like if there had to be a perfect or a near perfect action movie, it's True Lies. Like it's so good. Yeah. It's so good. So I think those hit the right notes. Recently, I think I really enjoyed Midsummer. Really enjoyed Parasite. Parasite was so good.
I haven't seen that. I've heard a lot of good things.
It was great. It's a really, really good movie. But yeah, that's
cool.
Those are my favorites, at least at the moment.
And what about TV show?
Oh, yeah. So recently, my favorite TV show that I've seen was The Mandalorian. I really enjoyed The Mandalorian. It felt so kind of like tonally on track with Star Wars. I love this sort of like space Western thing that they were doing. It kind of it struck a little bit of like a Serenity kind of vibe.
Yeah,
space
Western. That's what I said from the very beginning. It felt very much like Firefly.
But it also felt like it had that original story feel from the 80s.
Yes. Exactly. And a lot of that we actually went and saw The Rise of Skywalker yesterday.
No spoilers. I haven't seen
it. I'm gonna watch it this week.
But I will tell you the thing about the modern Star Wars movies that I think sort of takes it a little bit away for me, at least, from the feel of the original Star Wars movies, is that, you know, you have so many of these big CG set pieces. You have so many big CG shots, or just entirely CG, and you can literally do anything with the camera. And they do. They sweep the camera around in like really impossible angles and follow things that you could never follow in real life. And I think there's something in that gets it away from the original look of the movies, where everything was like very mechanical. Like you could only do so many different types of shots with the physical limitations that they have. And I feel like The Mandalorian does a good job of treating the camera as a real piece, as opposed to just like, you know, I'm sure there are shots in The Mandalorian that are entirely CG. And they could have swept the camera around and done crazy camera moves, but they didn't, for the most part. At least I can't remember it at any point them doing that. And I think so much of, you know, of course the sets always look like they were designed, you know, to fit in the universe. Like they're really good at the set design. They're really good at nailing the costumes and the look and the characters and everything. But I think that camera, it has so much to do, like that it communicates so much the way you move that camera, and I think The Mandalorian handled that really well.
They had a really good, I felt like they really balanced the CG-ness of it. You know, it wasn't overblown.
It felt great.
It
was great. I loved it.
So I take back anything that I said after episode 5 and 6 or whatever. 5 and 6, I was like, I wasn't sure, but it came back.
It did.
So good.
So, okay, when you were at Perception, were you able to sit there and jam out music while you were working? Because it was kind of an open environment, right? Did you have to like leave your headphones off, or were you able to just kind of dig into shots sometimes?
Y'all weren't even, y'all weren't connected to the internet, right?
No, that's always the hard part, is like, because of the security, you can't be connected to the internet.
Right.
It's a very challenging.
Were you able to have cell phones there as well?
No, you're not supposed to. Not supposed to.
So if you wanted to listen to music, you had to have like MP3 files or something.
Did anyone have like old iPods that they were bringing with them?
Oh man, no, that would be amazing. No, a lot of times there was no, you know, there's no music in the environment when we're working on those things. You know, in the past, you know, when we weren't working on super high security things, we'd all share like a Spotify playlist and that kind of thing, where everybody would dump a whole bunch of things into the Spotify playlist. We'd have some music going in the studio, but you know, certainly not for any of those high security features.
So when you do get to listen to music, though,
I have done that before. And working in an environment where you can't have your cell phone, you can't be connected to the internet, like you feel like a caveman. You know,
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. You realize just how much you use the internet every day when you can't use the internet.
It's
hard. It's really hard.
So when you can listen to music, though, what do you listen to?
You know, it's and this is something that I think about a lot, because over the years, you know, certainly as I've grown older, my relationship to music has changed a lot. But just the way that we consume music, you know, because like I grew up in like the 80s and 90s, where going to the record store was like an event, and it was exciting. And I would like, you know, come home with like a CD or two, and I would just like throw it on. I'd listen to the whole thing, and I would just like zone out reading liner notes and just just sort of taking it all in, like as a whole.
Or going to different CD shops in different cities and trying to find like the local music there that was cool, you know,
or like the rare import that like you heard of in a magazine, and you're like, oh man, I really want to listen to that, but like I can only get it in the UK, and it costs, you know, $200 to get it over here. And, you know, most record stores are going to laugh at you when you want to try and get that kind of, you're like, there's no way you're getting that. so there was so much of this. There was like a like kind of a treasure hunt kind of feel to music when, certainly when I was growing up. And over the years, of course, the way that we consume music has changed so much, and my relationship to music has changed so much. And it's these days I listen to music based on like what kind of mood I'm in or what I'm doing at the time. And so it varies so dramatically. So can I give you an answer for live shows?
Yeah.
Because I love going to live shows. I think my favorite live show I've ever seen was let's see, The Flaming Lips was probably my favorite live show. They just put on the most insane spectacle. Like it was like being at somebody's like crazy birthday party on acid. It was just nuts. And they actually stopped the show in the middle of their set, and they had like a card that this lady was turning, I think she was turning like 63 or something. She's like a huge fan. She sent them a card saying, I'll be in the audience, and it's my 63rd birthday or whatever. And they stopped the entire sold out show and had everybody in the audience sing happy birthday to this lady. They was like,
oh, that's really
that's nice.
It was super, super cool. And like, man, it was an amazing experience. It was one of those things like I've been to tons of shows, but like that's one that I really remember,
It's always great when you find out that a band or a star or someone is very, very down to earth and cool.
Yeah. And just cool about that kind of stuff. They're not, they don't
have big heads. Yeah.
Forever. Yeah. They've been around for so long, done so many shows, and I'm sure it's, for them, it's an opportunity to do something a little different, a little something special. But yeah, that was my favorite live show.
Yeah. Cool. Now, what about podcasts? Do you listen to any of them?
I do, yeah. Especially now, I've been listening to a lot because my commute's like an hour.
Oh yeah.
So I sit in my car in LA traffic and listen to podcasts all the time.
That's the best for driving.
Oh man, yeah, it's great. It's great. I've been listening to How Did This Get Made? With and that's been a lot of fun. That's because they cover a lot of movies that I know and love, and Hackers was a really good episode. So they're talking about hackers. That was one of those movies that like in the mid 90s, I think that movie came out in like 95 or 96 or something like that. And I was in high school.
Right, yeah.
And that movie I thought was like, I was like, wow, I can't wait for the future when I'm like flying around in the internet. Like, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
That's going to be so cool. Yeah, that didn't actually happen.
Hackers.
I didn't move to New York City and wear rollerblades all the time and go to clubs with ramps.
And drink Jolt Cola.
Yeah, drink Jolt Cola and hack on my my laptop with my like Google Glass from a cell phone or from a pay phone in Grand Central Terminal or whatever. Yeah.
If only.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah. But that podcast is hilarious. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Super good. They do a bunch of live podcasts that are always a lot of fun. And
is it all about movies?
Yeah, it's all about movies. So they do a bunch of movie stuff, and it's always movies that they didn't necessarily want to watch or they wouldn't watch under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
They're not good movies necessarily.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're all so funny that like, it's always just a good time to listen to them. It's great.
Yeah.
And what is your all-time favorite plugin?
Redshift
Right.
for anything.
Wow, no, not even a stall.
Yeah, I know, right? No hesitation.
No question about it.
What is it about it that you love so much?
I think for me, it's the fact that I can use it across Houdini, Cinema 4D. If I'm working with somebody who's working in Maya or whatever, you can use it in all of these different platforms, and everything is going to come out looking the same, like it's coming from the same render engine. It's great. It's fast. It's flexible. It's fantastic. I will say, After Effects doesn't feel complete without the Trapcode suite. but I almost feel like in a lot of ways you can't even treat that like a plugin anymore.
Yeah.
But now Red Giant, Maxon, Redshift, they're all one big happy family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen there. It's going to be nuts. I'm
telling you, I can't wait. Super comp inside of C4D. That's what I want.
It may happen.
It's just the beginning.
Very well now. Yeah.
The Red Dawn, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, headphones.
Oh, yeah. So it's funny. I bought these headphones that I'm using. The Ultrasone. Oh,
what brand is that?
And I've had these for forever. They've been good to me. I'm sure there are better headphones out there these days. I bought these 10 years ago, maybe, like a long time, but they've held up remarkably well. From what I understand, you can get like more of a felt kind of earpiece cushion.
Mm-hmm.
The leather cushion does make my head a little sweaty after I've been wearing them for a few hours, but
well, it's felt now because you just touched it.
Yeah.
Dad jokes.
Zing.
Gotta keep those dad jokes going strong. Gotta practice.
I gotta hook up my Stream Deck to like make all the bad noises.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yes.
My AirPods. I use my AirPods a bunch.
Yeah. I haven't been sure about those. Are those pretty good?
I love them.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They sound remarkably good.
Really?
For what they are. Yeah. And the fact that I can just like have my phone in my pocket and be like, not tangled up in the wires or anything like that.
Right.
It really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sure I haven't really sampled the gamut of Bluetooth wireless headphones out there. So it's entirely possible that there's some that sound even better, or they work really well. Like I know people wear the ones that have the little strap that sits around their neck so they can take them out and they sort of dangle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never used them. I'm sure they're awesome because people love them.
Yeah, those Bose though, man, so good. I was telling my dad, I was up in Detroit, and I was telling my dad about them, and I'm like, man, these headphones, I've replaced the pads on them because I've worn them out, and just having those on a plane, man, this morning coming back, it's a lifesaver. I didn't have a very good seat either. I was way in the back, and you can smell the.
Were you in a middle seat?
No, thank goodness. But you can smell the.
Dave doesn't do anything but a window seat.
Yeah.
He has to be able to orient himself to the ground.
I get kind of vertigo
if
I can't kind of get my bearings. And
I made him sit in a middle seat one time, and he was just furious the whole time.
Yeah, because I just feel like I could be upside down for all I know. I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting in the back. I've got the smell of the lavatory. I've got the exhaust. Awesome. It's hot, so you get that. When you're like hot from a heater because they're blowing the heater because it was cold there. You've got that heater on you, and you can smell exhaust at the same time, and it just makes you feel sick. The only comfort I had was my quiet comfort, which was my headphones, the Bose, and just flip them on, and at least some of that stuff just kind of went away. But
that's super nice. I'm gonna have to give those a shot.
Yeah. If you ever see anybody that has some that well enough to ask, just turn them on without anything except the noise canceling. No sound or anything. Just listen to the difference. I've never heard anything that matches. But I did hear that the cancellation on the new AirPods is actually really good.
Oh, I haven't tried the new ones. Are they AirPod Pro?
Yeah, the Pro.
Is that what they are?
Yeah.
I think that's what they're called, right?
The AirPod Pro. They're supposed to have really, really great cancellation. So, yeah.
Man. Smart people.
All right. So you pull out your phone, and what is your muscle memory, your go-to app when you pull out your phone?
Oh, these days it's Apple Maps. For sure. Just because, part of it is I'm still, learning how to navigate around Los Angeles. It's not a small city. It's pretty big. So just getting places and, I was a diehard Google Maps user for a long time,
Mhm.
but like for some reason, at least on my phone, it doesn't it's not cutting it. Apple Maps is running circles around them. So
Yeah.
been using
Really?
that. I tried to use Waze,
I love Waze.
and Waze I think it's really cool for places that aren't here
Yeah.
because I end up like down some weird little side streets, like taking, lefts and rights and like kind of zigzagging through these
Sends
tiny
us
little
that
streets.
way too. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like I found like here, I would, even though it would take me, 10 or 15 minutes longer, I'd rather just sit on the freeway where I don't have to worry about that. I just have to worry about not hitting the car in front of me,
Yeah.
like, and just being able to kind of enjoy that time. Cause obviously in New York City, you're on the subway and you're just kind of like hanging on, doing the thing.
Right.
And then you get off when you need to get off. But here you have to be a little bit more engaged. Obviously, when you're driving a car, you don't want to hit something.
Is there anything you miss about New York City?
Oh, I miss all kinds of things about New York City. The walkability. We live in an area in LA that's actually pretty walkable, which is pretty remarkable. Because most of the time you have to drive places.
Right.
But the walkability for sure. Good bagels. I loved, man. I was never a huge bagel guy until I moved to New York City, and I figured out. So, like, one of my favorite things on earth is Szechuan peppercorn. If you guys have never had anything made with Szechuan peppercorn, it is it's what they call the numbing spice. Okay. So it actually kind of like numbs your mouth a little bit when you eat it. It's spicy in quotation marks, but it's not that burning spicy. It's not even like black pepper spicy, if you call that spicy.
Right.
It's
muted spicy.
Kind of numbs. Yeah, it like numbs your mouth. It completely changes the way that food tastes. I love it. I absolutely love anything that's made with Szechuan peppercorn. So the bagel shop up the street from our apartment, we discovered about 2 weeks before we moved.
Oh no.
Peppercorn bagel, and they make a Szechuan peppercorn cream cheese, and it was so good. My wife was making fun of me because right before we moved, I would, every morning I'd get up and I'd have my morning coffee and be like, okay, I'm going to the bagel shop. I'll be back. You want anything? I'd go get my Szechuan peppercorn bagel.
I'm going to get that Szechuan. Yeah, I'm going to do that Szechuan. Morty.
That's it. Do it. And friends and everything, of course. It's so quiet here sometimes. I kind of miss horn honking occasionally. I'm getting used to it.
I bet you sleep better.
Yeah, sleep really, really well. It's awesome. We lived across the street from where they were building a 54-story skyscraper in Brooklyn.
Man.
So we had that. Construction started on that right after we moved in, which was super cool. Mercifully, we had really good windows in our apartment because our building was pretty new, but we did live right above a bus stop. So like 24 hours a day, you get the beeping sound and the lowering of the bus and the beeping and the raising and people yelling. And I mean, it's Brooklyn. That's it comes with the territory, and like it drives you nuts for a day or two, and then you're like, you just kind of.
It's just New York.
Yeah.
Noise.
Have you? My favorite Muppet movie, which coincidentally is not on Disney Plus. The only one not on Disney Plus is Muppets Take Manhattan. But that's their thing. All these weird things happen through the whole movie, and they're like, it's just New York.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only way you can really explain it. It's an amazing place. It really is.
We used to live in an apartment across the street from or right next to like the tollway, and you get motorcycle racers at all times of the day, and it was so loud.
Yeah,
I believe it.
All right, last question. What is your favorite life hack?
Oh, man. So this is a good one. I actually have one directed specifically to freelancers.
Sweet.
Something that totally saved me when I first started freelancing. If nobody has told you, you have to pay your own taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to take your taxes out for you. You're going to get hit with that nasty bill at the end of the year. Or if you've got an LLC or an S corp, you're going to have to pay quarterly. So the thing that saved me when I first went freelance is I opened 4 bank accounts.
Jeez.
I had a personal checking, personal savings, business checking, business savings.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the 4 bank accounts. So every time I got a check from a client when they paid my invoice, I would take that check and I would deposit 60% of it into my business checking and 40% into my business savings. Business savings is for tax purposes only. I ignore that money. That money is gone.
Right.
It doesn't exist. It's not mine.
40%?
40%.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I know that's way more than you
Yeah.
need, but I would rather have more than I need.
Right.
And then
For
at
sure.
the end of the year, I get kind of a refund, right? When I
Right.
don't have to pay as much. But I would take 60% and I would put it into my business checking. And from there, I had sort of determined after a couple of months of living in New York about how much I needed to pay bills and to enjoy myself in the city and, you know, buy groceries and that kind of thing, just living expenses. And I had like a hard number every month that I would transfer from my business checking into my personal checking, and then just a little chunk into my personal savings just for my own purposes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would live on like a, you know, especially in the beginning when business was a little rocky and I wasn't consistently busy, just because I didn't know anybody and I was just kind of starting out. It was really important to be super regimented with your money because it's so easy, especially in a place like New York. Because like when I moved from Richmond to New York, my bills tripled.
Yeah.
You know, I went from paying like $625 a month for my 1-bedroom apartment to like $2,200 a month for my studio. It was
I like to give my brother-in-law who lives in New York, I love to give him crap because his rent on his 750 square foot apartment is the same as my mortgage on a 3,200 square foot house.
Yeah, exactly.
Texas mansions, man.
It's crazy how expensive it is. But like, you know, I mean, even buying there, like, so the building that I first lived in was actually a co-op, which is like, it's sort of a weird, I think it's a pretty New York specific thing. They probably have co-ops elsewhere, but it's not like you're renting the apartment. You would end up like, if you joined the co-op, you buy shares in a company that happens to come with a free apartment, which is sort of a weird, I'm sure tax reasons or whatever. I was actually renting in that building, so I didn't buy in. But if I wanted to buy my 400 square foot studio in Upper West Side of Manhattan, it would have been $500,000.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
I can't.
So save your money, kids. Save your money.
Yeah, save your money.
Yeah.
The short version is I used my bank accounts to kind of regiment and plan how much I was spending, so I didn't spend all my money, and then when the tax bill showed up, I would have been like, I don't have that money, it's gone. So well, you know, like
it's in Bill's house.
Yeah,
sure.
The finger thing means the taxes.
Yeah. So that's my life hack. 4 bank accounts for a free.
That's smart.
Cool. Yeah.
I don't do that. I just spend it all. And then at the end of the year, I'm like, all right, I owe taxes. We'll figure it out.
Well,
I was really hoping my kid would come last year so that, you know, I'd get that good tax break.
Right.
But no.
Too late. That's funny. Cool. Well, we appreciate you being on, Russ. We were really excited about this one.
In this industry.
Yeah.
You're so down to earth and so easy to talk to, and you've always got a smile on your face, which I love.
I try to. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Good chatting. And hopefully I'll see you guys, if not at Camp Mograph, then, you know, at NAB.
Well, NAB, man. That's an easy drive for you now.
You're so close to NAB. You should come.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's going to be a fun time. If people want to find you online, where can they find you at? Yeah, so you can hit me on Twitter at robotastronaut_. Don't go to the other robot astronaut. That's not me.
My website, robotastronaut.tv, is sadly pretty limited at the moment. It was what I was able to throw together in a couple of nights before I got in the RV and moved out here, and I just haven't had any chance to update it. It will get updated at one point, but for the moment, it's pretty limited. Mm-hmm. Usually you can find me under Robot Astronaut on most of the social platforms, Instagram, where I am extremely inactive. I'm really on Instagram to assist my wife's Instagram. She has a hot sauce review and pairing Instagram called Girl Meets Spice, which is awesome.
Nice.
And I'm there really just to support.
I've got some friends that make hot sauce. I'm gonna have to cook y'all up.
Please do.
Yeah.
She's super, super deep into it. And it's been a big part of our life, certainly together, and hers long before she met me. So we love spicy things. That's a good thing. But yeah, Pinterest and Vimeo and all that stuff. You can usually find me under Robot Astronaut. Cool. I'm kicking around. And
we'll put a link to your site and everything in the show notes as well if anybody's looking for it there.
Awesome.
Awesome. We're going to get out of here, though. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. It helps get our ratings up here in the new year. You can also subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. Check out the newsletter. We're going to put another newsletter out, hopefully by the end of the week. I was just waiting to have a little more stuff for our course so I could kind of squeeze that into the newsletter.
Gotta finish the course, and then we'll send out the email.
Yeah. And then you could say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. Then there's the Render Things t-shirt, hoodie, long sleeve tee, and the That Render is Fire shirt, which you're only allowed to wear ironically. So check those out on the site. Buy them up. Make sure you get one. We might come up with a new shirt here before NAB for everybody to wear as well.
Hashtag stop being afraid of Houdini.
There you go. And then we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, Mograph.com. And I don't have to tell anybody to subscribe to this channel because if you're here, you're subscribed to this channel.
But you're going to anyway.
I'm going to say, make sure that you are subscribed to the Mograph channel from now on, or else. All right, we're going to get out of here, though. Until next time, I'm Dave.
I'm Matt.
Russ.
Have a good one.
Later, yo.
Stand by.